Panic. Panic is the most intense and fastest transition of all. Nothing highlights the mechanics of an induced transition better than panic. First, the spiral tightens rapidly during panic. A signal of real danger always feels convincing. A person quickly gets caught in the destructive pendulum's game. The pendulum itself begins to swing wildly, growing stronger, like an avalanche. Second, in panic, people almost completely lose self-control. They become both sensitive receivers and active broadcasters of the pendulum's energy. In other words, they amplify it. Finally, the pendulum finds its ideal form of materialization in a crowd. That's why panic spreads so fast and is so hard to stop. In moments of panic, nobody even thinks about how to resist the pendulum. However, if you can regain control and avoid panic, you may save your life and even the lives of others. For example, on a sinking ship, people panic and fight for space on the nearest rescue boat, while other nearby boats sit empty. If they simply paused and looked around, they'd see alternatives. But that's the trap of induced transition. It works like a funnel, sucking everything inward and blinding you to other choices. Poverty. Now let's look at another kind of induced transition: poverty. Logically, how can someone born into poverty become wealthy? We're not talking about crime or fairy tales of overnight success. Ordinary logic can't explain it. Transurfing doesn't follow common sense, but it allows you to achieve what seems impossible. When people act logically, they get predictable results. Someone born poor grows up surrounded by poverty, absorbing its energy. If all they feel is hatred for their poverty, envy of the wealthy, or blind desire to get rich, they're unlikely to succeed. Why? Because one of life's first hard lessons is this: just because you don't want something doesn't mean it will go away. The more you hate something, the more it appears in your life. Whether it's poverty, your job, your appearance, or society, the more you despise it, the more it shows up. That's because you're tuned into the energy of what you don't want. It doesn't matter whether you like or hate something, the energy is there. In fact, strong dislike is even more powerful. Your negative emotions feed the destructive pendulum, making it swing even harder. And if you actively hate something, you also create an excess potential. Balancing forces then move against you, because it's easier for the universe to remove one person's resistance than to change the whole world. That's why negative attitudes hold such power over your life.
Let's return to our example: a person born into poverty who dreams of becoming rich. Desire alone doesn't change anything. You can sit on the couch and think, it would be nice to have strawberries, but it's winter. It's impossible. That's how many people think about wealth. If someone isn't ready to act, nothing happens. And they often don't act because they're convinced it won't matter anyway. That's a vicious cycle. Desire has no power. It won't even lift a finger. It's intention, readiness to act, that creates change. Intention also includes readiness to have what you want. Many people say, "I'm ready to be rich," but deep down they're not. For example, a poor person may feel uncomfortable in a luxury store, no matter how hard they pretend otherwise. They might feel unworthy, like they don't belong there. Wealth hasn't entered their comfort zone. They might admire wealth from afar, but inside it feels too distant. A poor person may crave external symbols of wealth, mansions, luxury cars, but if you suddenly place them in such an environment, they'd feel out of place. If you gave them a suitcase full of money, they might waste it because their energy doesn't align with that reality. Until wealth feels natural to them, they'll remain poor, even if they stumble upon treasure. Another major obstacle is envy. Envy breeds resentment toward others' success. When someone envies, they subconsciously devalue what others have. They think, "It's not that great, I don't need it anyway." This triggers rejection at a deep level. The subconscious takes this rejection literally, ensuring they'll never receive what they envy. As you can see, powerful forces keep people trapped on poor life tracks. Now, imagine this. A wealthy person falls into poverty. The induced transition works slowly at first, then accelerates, until it's nearly unstoppable. It often starts with small financial problems, temporary difficulties that can happen to anyone. If you stay calm and avoid frustration, the problem fades. But if you get upset, angry, depressed, or anxious, you fuel the destructive pendulum. The first reaction is usually discontent. That's a weak response, but it still feeds the pendulum. If discontent grows into indignation, the pendulum swings harder. You start blaming others for your situation, drawing in more problems, smaller paychecks, sudden bills, rising prices. You may not notice it yet, but the transition has begun. You're tuning your energy to a new life track, one of deprivation and frustration. As things worsen, you discuss them with others, complaining, blaming, venting anger. This feeds the pendulum even more. Eventually, anxiety takes hold. Though subtle, anxiety is highly nourishing to the pendulum. Soon, you're overwhelmed by negative emotions, anger, depression, apathy.
Once balancing forces join the pendulum, everything spirals out of control. You feel fear, then helplessness, as if the world itself has spun you around and tossed you aside. You're left in shock, wondering how it all started. But it began with one small issue, one moment where you gave in to negativity. The pendulum doesn't want your money, it feeds off your negative energy during loss. Once the spiral fully unravels, you're left with nothing, and the pendulum moves on to its next victim. Escaping this trap isn't easy, but it's possible. The only way to avoid an induced transition is to never grab the end of the spiral. Don't get caught in the pendulum's game. Simply knowing this isn't enough. You must stay aware, constantly. Every time you feel irritation, worry, or join in negative talk, pull yourself back. Realize you're playing into the pendulum's hands. Just like in a dream, once you become lucid, aware, you regain control. You're no longer a puppet of your emotions. Summary: every person creates their own layer of reality. The collective world consists of these layers stacked together. Negative energy makes your personal layer worse. Society mistakenly sees aggression as strength and dissatisfaction as normal. Reacting negatively to life events pushes you onto negative tracks. An induced transition happens when you let negative events take hold in your personal reality. Avoid allowing negativity into your layer, not by hiding from it, but by consciously refusing to engage with it. Thank you for listening. Remember, awareness is your greatest power. Stay mindful, and until next time, take care.